Hello, this is Desiree Delahant. This is my Module 8 Legal Aspects of Teacher Evaluation presentation. The first article, Teacher Evaluation, that came from NEA. It talked a lot about the evaluation systems being based mostly on student performance. It also discussed that states are required to come up with their own goals to gauge school performance. States also have to have high quality evaluation tools. It talked a lot about negotiations that are going on between states to decide what evaluations are going to be permitted. It discusses the fact that the language must be very clear and easy to understand on the evaluations, and some kind of feedback needs to be available to teachers when they are done with the evaluation, so they need to have something they can act upon. And that teachers must also be trained on all the evaluation systems that are being used for their evaluation. Teacher evaluation heads to court article summary. It talked about the changes in the evaluation systems and how more litigation has started because of these evaluation systems than they expected when this originally started. Unions are contesting the use of student scores for evaluations. This is something that it talked about in all of the articles. Many of the court proceedings are based on facts that evaluations are not looking at all of the circumstances. That's something that they're not taking into account, the number of ESL students or the number of special ed students or the poverty level in the area. And those are things that are not being looked at when they are using student scores on their evaluations. Teachers feel that they're more inconsistent from year to year. One example was a teacher had an evaluation that had met expectations one year, and then the next year, her evaluation said that she was below expectations. Teachers of English language learners feel that evaluation systems are very unfair to them, which is understandable. They're being evaluated on the students that are still learning to speak English. We have a lot of that in my own district. Teacher evaluation and issue overview article summary. Teacher evaluations are changing widely from state to state and school district to school district. There's a lot of pressure to change the evaluations that are being used, including the dismissal of poorly performing teachers. Evaluations have become more important because some data is showing that some teachers are more effective than others. So how are we going to gauge which teacher we should be getting rid of and which we should be keeping, and how are we going to help those teachers depending on that data that they're collecting? Data showed that tenured teachers very rarely were fired. Their evaluations were just routine and they didn't really use them for much anymore. Other people argued that revamping evaluations would give more feedback. Some policymakers think that they were more objective. They need to have more objective information because it's going to change depending on the personal relationship that each teacher has with their principal. So that's a big concern as well. Some states began basing half of the teacher's evaluation on student data. This is that article continued. Unions are asking for better and more meaningful feedback, which is something that I actually would like more in my evaluations. Problems arise when they're based on student assessment performance. Students, you cannot determine how they're going to test, and so the teachers are really struggling to see how it is fair to them to have the student tests give them their evaluation. That's been a huge problem for a while. Teachers are very fearful about their students' performance because of the change in the Common Core standards. Some studies show that teachers are performing better when their job depends on their evaluation and the feedback they're getting, and their performance is changing because they're worried about those evaluations. And many states are revamping their evaluations tools, and they're working to make them better. Evaluations in my district, we use a program called Talent Ed, and what that does is it sends out the review of your evaluation. You read through it and you sign it, and then it sends out some more information. So maybe the standards that the teacher was using, and then you read through it and sign it. And then finally, it sends out another form where you get to see what your ranking is. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. Principal performs hour-long observations twice a semester from the first to the third year in our district. After that, it's once a year we get these bigger evaluations. And then a couple years down the line, it's even fewer observations. I'm sorry, not observations, evaluations. And the results are sent out on Talent Ed, and they can be read and sign off on it. Toward the end of the report, teachers are given either developing, meets expectations, or exceeds expectations. So this is where they can see if they're going to be asked to return to their job. They can see which areas they're performing poorly in and what standards they're not meeting. The principal also conferences with them after they've reviewed all of the information in Talent Ed. During the conference, that's when feedback and explanations are given about the ratings for the evaluations. So you do go in, we usually schedule a time with our principal, and we sit down and she kind of takes us through the entire evaluation, takes us through and explains what standards she feels we're doing well on, which ones we could work on, and then goes through our meets, exceeds, or below expectation number there that we're given. Another thing I thought that would be important to state is that we also are given walkthroughs throughout the year. So there's another form, and it's all done online, and the principal will come in for maybe 5-minute period, and whatever she sees, she puts into this walkthrough form, and that's sent directly to the teachers afterwards. So we can see if we're working only in quad A, how can we get to quad B? How can we get to quad C? How can we get to quad D? And it also states, are we meeting our objectives? Are we talking about our objectives? Are they observable? And then they also talk about each step of the lesson. So they're kind of catered to math versus reading. They look a little bit different, but we get those for every time they come and observe our class. The evaluation discrepancy. Our Talent Ed form has a section where teachers can put that they disagree with their results. Where the teacher disagrees, there's also a section where they can put some documentation proving why they disagree, or giving some evidence of what they think they were doing that was not marked on their evaluation, things like that, maybe lesson plans. When the conference with the principal and teacher, when they cannot come to an agreement, they will take the dispute to the superintendent. Usually we see that getting worked out with our principal though. And then teachers can also work with the personnel office if they think they are being removed without good reason. One case that I did find was a legal case. It's Francis versus USD 457, and it went way back to 1994. I had a hard time finding any cases versus USD 457. In this case, Francis was being released for a shoplifting charge. She tried to appeal her termination, but her appeal was not submitted within the 30-day period that she was supposed to have her information turned in. So as a result of that, the court dismissed the case entirely. They said that because her appeal was untimely, that she had no grounds. And since she did not file, the court didn't even consider the case. So that was the result of that. Reflection on legal practices. This is kind of a scary section to think about. I do know that I need to learn a lot more about the legal policies before I become a principal. I want to be able to protect myself, and I want to be able to protect the teachers that work with me. I do think I need to know a lot more of the laws and even the policies just in my district. And I think that I should make sure I'm safeguarding my staff as well. I want to make sure that the evaluations are fair and unbiased. I want to talk to veteran teachers in my building about the evaluation tools, and I need to research the laws and requirements for the evaluation process. Thank you.